Hello there, this is John Coleshaw, and I'm just slightly borrowing the voice of John Pertwee for a moment. I don't know, maybe a regeneration might happen. Yes, it happened there. Yes, and you're listening to the Sirens of Audio. Wonderful chaps. Both of them.
Well, I'll do the intro again, Dwayne?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2...
Sounds like Thunderbirds when you do it. You only need to go from 3.
Oh, 3, 2, 1...
G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the podcast that explores the universe of Doctor Who in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
G'day, Philip. Do you know, recently I discovered that someone was listening to us and didn't realise that all our episodes went out as a video version as well?
No, really? Well, I can understand that, actually.
Yeah. So for anyone who is listening, all of our podcasts are also available on Spotify and YouTube as a video version if you want to look at our beautiful faces and any of our guests' beautiful faces.
Yeah, you may not want to look at my beautiful face anyway, so if I were you, just stick to the audio, it's fine.
So there you go. And if you are watching on YouTube, please do like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment. It all helps spread the word because that's what we want to do. We want as many people to get switched on to audio as possible. Of course, I know a lot of listeners and viewers are already audio fans, but if we can get more people switched on, that would be super.
Super duper.
So tonight, Philip, we have a very exciting show. We're going to be speaking with writer, producer, and sometimes actor, script editor, Alfie Shaw. That's coming up very shortly. But before we get to Alfie, do you know what?
What do you want to do first, Dwayne?
Well, I don't want to do anything first. I can't help it. There's a rabbit hole. We're falling in. Let's go. Right, Philip. We're in the rabbit hole. And I was just thinking about... I was strolling through Instagram and a picture of my dad posted an old picture of my mum, so I was surprised to see that. And I was reminded of something that my mum told me once about my Doctor Who fandom. She said that we always just thought it was silly, but we just let you go because we assumed you'd grow out of it. I wonder how many people have had that experience. Did you have a similar experience, or were your folks okay?
No, my parents thought I'd grow out of it as well.
Yeah.
I guess they were happy in terms of... I mean, the first thing they noticed was just me buying, with my pocket money every week, buying a Target book. So I got $2 a week for pocket money, and as soon as I got my $2, I'd walk up to the local shops, the Angus and Robinson, buy a new Target, come home and read it that afternoon. And I guess once they needed to buy me a bookshelf to start containing them, they thought, oh, this is a bit strange. But I was also big into Star Wars at the same time, too, so I don't think they quite worked out the Star Wars Doctor Who thing. My wife does talk about the fact that I'd kept it all hidden from her, so she didn't actually realise she knew I liked Doctor Who, but she had no idea to the extent until after we got married. So she feels like she kept it hidden from her before we got married.
Bit of a betrayal there.
Well, she does call
That's a strong word.
she does call my Doctor Who collection the mistress. So I'm off to spend time with the mistress she talks about. So that's how she views my Doctor Who collection.
And it is for people our age who were fans of the classic era without video recorders and things like that, without access to everything that fans have today. Not only do fans today have access to everything, but fandom itself was a lot more solitary back then. The more people I speak to, the more I realise that it was a very solitary. Unless you were right up there doing fanzines and mixed in with the club at and organising, events and conventions and things. Even when you were coming along, I remember the day events where people would come along and they'd sort of be by themselves, and then they'd sort of disappear again until the next day event. So it was a much more solitary experience being a Doctor Who fan, whereas the internet today makes it much more communal. It's a totally different experience. It's very different.
Yeah, it may be. It's curious. I mean, I've not actually thought about that, but yeah, you are right. I mean, I still remember one of the, it must have been 1983 at Sydney University, 78, so I would have been about 14, 15, going along there, and my parents just let me go wherever I wanted. I just caught the train in. But yeah, I remember reading the Five Doctors Target novel, because it came out, it must have been a bit before the anniversary, because it came out early in Australia, so it must have been about 2 weeks before the show was shown on TV. And I remember during that convention having read the entire novel in breaks between things, because I wasn't talking to anyone. I mean, I'd go to the panels, I'd go to the discussions, but in all the breaks in between, I'd be, I was sitting on the steps reading the novel. So, yeah, I hadn't thought about it being an individual. Yeah, I guess I didn't really make friends particularly, but I was going along to all the events and just soak out what I could.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess being on the internet, it's not as difficult, because I know myself, I always found it difficult speaking with people and making friends. Still do, I guess, to a degree. But with the internet, you can just put a couple of lines and people respond. You don't have that social interaction that you had no choice but to have if you wanted to have interaction at all back in those days. Unless you wrote to Think Tank in data extract. You might get a response from the editor.
Yeah, yes. I guess there's a lot more possibilities there, aren't there, for connection.
So what is it about the fandom that we have? What is it that's kept us? Why did we never grow up, Philip? That's a question, because I started off by saying it was my mum that made me think of this. Why did we never grow up? Is that the correct term to use, or do we have it in our personality that we've got addictive personalities and this is the kind of thing we've gravitated towards? What is it, do you think?
There's a level of, I mean, I know there's more and more female fans, and we've got we've got lots of women who are listening to us. Great to have you on board. But early on, certainly with the classic series, it was very male dominated, and I think males do tend to collect things. And I mean, look at my collections behind me, for goodness sake. We do. We do like to collect things and have everything.
And that's only what you've got in the last 2 years.
No, I've been digging things out of boxes, but there's I got 2 more TARDISes arrived today. So yeah, I don't know.
So there's a good incentive for you to get on YouTube, folks.
It is. So anyhow, but yes, I mean, why have we grown up? I don't know, but I'm happy not to grow up.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy as well. We need to climb out of the rabbit hole because Alfie's just turned up in our waiting room. So let's throw in a trailer for something that Alfie has done. Let's throw in a trailer for the new Unit series with Brigadier Bambera. So check this out, guys. We'll be back with Alfie in just a moment.
Seabird 1 to Seabird 2, come in, over.
From Big Finish Productions.
There's a bomb about to go off.
Unit, Brave New World, Volume 1.
Is that you, Brigadier Bambera?
Brad, down! I'm going in!
You're being recalled to Unit Central Control.
What? No, I'm not done here.
If the BSP made contact with alien life, I can assure you that we wouldn't keep quiet about it.
I've seen some pretty freaky things in my time. But to this day, I really hate dealing with the woo-woo stuff. What the hell was that?
We're about to have company!
Damn it! Open fire! Don't let it touch you! It's deadly!
But it's a butterfly!
You people always reduce everything to monsters.
Bug hunt, Sergeant. A unit privilege.
Activate the containment cage!
You're my scientific advisor?
Are you expecting a twitchy little man with a clipboard?
What did they promise you all, huh?
Okay, who gave the cleaner alien tap?
I won't have your delusional vendetta hold up our launch any longer! Ah!
Everybody down! Oh.
We hope you know what you're doing.
Me too! Shame. Are you sure the nation will survive me in charge?
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
We're very privileged today to have one of the new young guns of Big Finish. One of the things that Big Finish has been doing, and we're loving, is the fact they're bringing in a whole new generation of young people who are doing amazing work in terms of writing, producing, directing. And this is, joining us today, is the magnificent and much worked Alfie Shaw. Alfie, thank you for joining us.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
So it's great to see you. We of course chatted with you a little while ago with the big announcement of the Jake Dudman box sets being released. So thank you for that from a few weeks back.
It's quite all right. It's a pleasure to chat to you then. It's always great to speak to you guys.
Yeah, great. We seem like we're wearing the same clothes. Bizarre that, for those who are watching.
I only own one pair of clothes. It's fine. I took that from Doctor Who at a young age. You just have one outfit and you wear it every day.
No matter what it is. That's a good idea. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you... Well, before you came to Big Finish, what were you doing? What was your dreams of life?
Oh, blimey. How far back would you like me to go?
Well, I guess you're mainly known Big Finish as a producer, but I know writing is your passion. So when did you first decide that writing was what interested you?
Oh, from a very, very young age. When I was mainly kicked off by comics, when I was about 5 or 6, the walls in my bedroom were yellow, and I got a black, very permanent pen and just started drawing comics on the walls. And my parents just left them there, like it was sort of art put up on the fridge. So I've always really been interested in telling stories. In terms of a kind of more formalized sort of desire to write, that kind of really kicked in at around secondary school, when I started doing, whenever we got a creative writing assignment, I would essentially just take it on like it was the most serious thing in the world, to the point that one time we all had to do these stories. Everyone else's story was about 2 or 3 pages, and I hadn't finished mine. And I was feeling terrible because I thought, oh no, I've not finished. This is really bad. This is awful. You shouldn't do this. I had a deadline. I had my first deadline and I missed it. And the person sitting next to me went, the teacher was very upset, and I very clearly remember the person next to me going, "Miss, ask him how long it is." And she said, "How long is it?" I went, "It's 9 pages and it's chapter 1. At which point she went, "Okay, you've got another evening, finish it off." So I was always just interested in telling kind of stories and just wanting to explore worlds. And this story, the one I did, it was very much like the first episode of Doctor Who. There was a sort of creature attacking for some reason a dental practice, and it was setting up the personal life of the receptionist and the dentist and how they were involved with this alien. And I did another one where my school was attacked by cyber jackals, which in my head were essentially Cybermen, but built like jackals, sort of big mechanical. Did you ever see? Oh, what's it called? This is going to annoy me. Bionic, the Lego weird tool. Yes. In my head, they sort of looked like that, and they were just running up and down the school.
Was it Bionicle?
Bionicle, yes. Thank you very much. So they were sort of like that, and I just sort of imagine these big metallic cyber things stalking my school and throwing the dinner tables aside and that sort of thing. So it's always been there into sort of a greater or lesser extent.
Okay, so you grew up during the wilderness years of Doctor Who. So when did you make a connection with Doctor Who? Because with these stories, I guess we grew up writing Doctor Who stories because we're old. What were you writing, and when did you first connect with Doctor Who?
To do that backwards, I was first doing sort of stickmen comics based around people at my school, and always big monsters. It was always sci-fi fantasy. But one Christmas, and I don't know who is responsible in my family for this, but because I can't remember who the present was from, but they are very much responsible. I got the VHS double tin of 10th Planet and Attack of the Cybermen in that big silver collector's tin.
Yep, I have that.
And I loved it. I mean, I sort of vaguely remember watching the 10th Planet and going, "Oh my god, these creatures are so cool," and I love the Cybermen. But it was really Attack of the Cybermen, and I think because it was so bright and vibrant, and you had weirdly Colin in that multicolored coat, which is of course very, even Colin isn't a particularly big fan of that at the time. But when I was young, I was like, this is brilliant. Where do I get more of this? From there, it always became, if I was ill, if I had a sick day off, my mum would go and buy me another VHS or a DVD. So I then picked up 4 to Doomsday, Robots of Death, Remembrance of the Daleks. I particularly fell in love with Sylvester's Doctor early on because it was a sort of, especially in Remembrance, it was that sort of balance between grumpier First Doctor, at least in my head at the time, and very upright hero Colin Baker. There was that kind of light and dark to 7, which is what I've always really enjoyed as the Doctor going forward. But from then, I'd always sort of just pick things up in terms of the TV show. But we went to the Longleat House convention for Doctor Who, because at that point I was firmly a Doctor Who fan, but not in fandom. In fact, I've only really sort of joined the fandom in the last couple of years or so. Doctor Who's always been quite a kind of private thing for me, or a thing that I enjoyed with my friends, but they were people who just sort of liked the new series. They weren't hardcore. I could tell you lots of things about Doctor Who. And at this Longleat House convention, I was bought The Fearmonger on CD.
Yep.
And that not only kickstarted my love of Big Finish, and then I went through all of them. I mean, I think I've pretty much done most of the catalogue at this point. It cemented the fact for me that Doctor Who never really finished. It was, even when I was growing up, I felt that this show was being made. It was just being made on audio. And it sort of helped that I was a big fan of Radio 7, as it was then, now 4 Extra. And so was listening to, I think I was the only 9-year-old who was a fan of the Clitheroe Kid and the Goon Show and the Navy Lark in the 90s. But just, so I'd loved radio and was just listening to all this Doctor Who. So Doctor Who has always been a multimedia show for me. And when it came back on the TV, it was very exciting. But it wasn't Doctor Who's back. It was Doctor Who's back on the telly.
Yeah. Were your parents Doctor Who fans? Is that why they were feeding you the VHS?
No. I've no idea. I very distinctly remember, if they ever do a biopic of my life, they shouldn't. More interesting people are available. But if they do, I remember my granddad, when I unwrapped it, he sort of went, I think you're going to enjoy this. So it might have come from him, but none of them are big science fiction or fantasy fans. My sister isn't either. I am the sole nerd in that sense in the Shaw family. So I've no idea where it came from. It was clearly I liked science fiction and fantasy stuff, and they went, we think this will work for you. And of course, it's since then gone on to guide my dress sense, personality, career path, and pretty much any other part of my life you care to name.
So you picked up Fearmonger. That's a fun one to start. Bit of Jacqueline Pearce and Sylvester McCoy, and I love that story actually. But then you just followed through getting more Big Finish. So who was buying these for you?
My parents, really. That was the main thing. And then also, I can't remember when it was, but before Extra stuff would have kicked off. The Paul McGann.
Philip, I wish I had Alfie's parents.
Yeah, me too.
I had to save my pocket money, starve myself with my school lunch money to buy blank beta cassettes so I could record off the television. But you got all this stuff bought for you, Alfie. That's insane.
I mean, I didn't get everything at the time. I should probably stress that. I've since gone back and been able to listen to them all via means I won't tell you about, because it will just make you jealous and upset.
I still love your parents.
I guess you have to also research, Alfie, don't you? Oh, I better get these next 10 stories to do my research for this story I'm writing.
Yes, and if you're a producer and work in the office at Big Finish, there is an argument to be made that you should be aware of everything that the company does. But I do try. I genuinely, I mean, just a tangent, I try and keep up to date. I try and listen to everything that we do, just because I feel that I should be aware of what the company's doing, but also because you get to listen to loads of great things, and I'm able to sort of, if I really like something, I do text people and say, I loved it, like the second Doctor set, the Beyond War Games, I was just telling Mark and Nick and Andrew, it was great. So I always try and, if I like something, do get in touch with people, and I have very long and sort of almost worship-like texts towards Tim Foley, being like, Where did you get your brain from? Can I acquire this? Mad genius. But I kind of grew up with just sort of bits and pieces, and I didn't get everything. It was very much main range. And then when they started appearing on the radio, I had a digital radio that you could record things on. So I would record them and listen back to them like people used to do back in the day. And then I was made aware that you could
back in the day,
them.
yes,
So
I'm one of those people back in the day, yes.
Yeah. But I was made aware that you could buy them. So I bought them because I thought, these are people get paid to make these. And I want more of these. So I went back and I bought them. So it's always kind of built up that way. And I've always, as I say, it's just always been a sort of audio-esque show to me. There's just different bits of it. And I didn't do the novels. I've really not done the Virgin New Adventures or the Eight Doctor Adventures or any of that side of things. For me, growing up, it really was Big Finish, the old TV stuff, and then the new stuff when it all came back gloriously in 2005.
Okay, so when you left school, what was the plan? Did you go study, or what did you do between school and Big Finish?
Okay. I had a bad job in the middle. I thought I'd try and be polite about. I went to university. I did English. I, in that time, made a radio sitcom, which I've since just got rid of because it was too many ideas in one episode. It was just, it didn't quite flow well, and various writer producer things I won't bore you with. But it was the fact that I made a full 7-part, half-an-hour series like Big Finish, and I'd learned. I listened to all the behind the scenes of Big Finish and went, okay, I think I know how to do this, and got all the equipment and put it all together, and we sort of made it that way, and just sort of kept doing things like that. When I was 16, I started doing stand-up comedy and from around the country, so I was always sort of there doing performance and trying to entertain people. But after university, I ended up working for a company that made websites for dentists, which really wasn't my bag. It wasn't a fit for me. And I could tell that this really wasn't my kind of calling life, because before I got that job, I went into interview for a job for a sales executive for some company. And they said, well, what have you achieved in your life? And I went, well, look, I've made a sitcom. And they were there going, don't think you quite understand this job. But it was what I was proud of and what I wanted to do. But I did that sort of dentistry-based job for a sort of year and a half. And there is a thing in the BBC, in the UK, called the BBC Production Trainee Scheme, where you apply, and if you get on it, you're trained by the BBC for, I think it was about a year, our one was, and you are put on various different bits of the BBC to learn, so you're trained and then put out to do various bits and pieces. And I was attached to Radio 4 drama for a bit. I was attached to Comic Relief one year, but I was also attached to Radio 4 Presentation, who are the people responsible for Radio 4 Extra, as well as doing the continuity announcements in between the programs on Radio 4, the shipping forecast, and they make all the trailers for all the shows and things. And it was there that I met Nick Brees, who hosts The Seventh Dimension, which was part of their remit. And I got to work with Nick because Moy, who is a wonderful person and producer there, went, you like Big Finish. Nick, I think I've got your biggest fan. He's going to be making your segment today. And I just emailed Nick afterwards. It was one of those moments of just going, I have to seize this moment. I cannot let this pass me by. But hi, really great to work with you. Really lovely. And he was really great to work with you. Nick's fabulous. I've always been an admirer of your work. Is there any chance we could have I just asked for a chat. He went, do you want to just come to a Tom Baker recording? I went, oh, okay. Go on then, if you insist.
You sure you didn't want to think about that?
I mean, it was a really hard decision for me, sleepless nights, but I eventually decided to go for it. And so I ended up sitting in on the recording of the Iron Legion.
Okay. The comics.
The comics, yeah. I think it was that. I definitely sat in on that one. But I sat on at least a recording of one of which was the Iron Legion, but I then sat back on a second recording because Nick then got in touch and said, well, you've been trained to be a producer by the BBC. You can clearly do this. Ian is stepping down from the short trips range. Would you like to not only take over, but just come in and have a job interview and pitch us a series? So I went down and in the lunch break of another Tom Baker recording session. In the midst of this second Tom Baker recording, I had this job interview with Nick and Dave and pitched them short trips, and they basically went, okay, that sounds good. On you go. And from there, I was in. And then I started I've got a part-time office job at the company as production coordinator, and have slowly just developed from there. And, my journey from there is very clearly on the Big Finish website. You can follow it from the ground up. But that is the kind of course from childhood, falling in love with Doctor Who, which was, as I say, a very sort of isolated thing. And it was very weird meeting fandom, because my first experience with fandom was reviews. But then from there, it was all that. And then here I am today, rambling. Yes, I hope that covers everything. If you've got any more questions, please let me.
No. Lots more questions. That's only the start of it. So, short trips was your first thing you came in on, which is brilliant. One of the things that I guess short trips changed direction with you coming was it moved a lot more into, I guess, short trips before you were kind of short audio stories. They became, I guess, more like companion chronicles. They'll take a bigger dimension, and I mean, Regeneration Impossible to me is probably one of the highlights of your time there in terms of the blending of different Doctors. So why the decision to take the ranges? Well, why the different directions did you take it?
Well, Regeneration Impossible was very late in the day when I took over. A lot of the stuff that seemed to be quite popular were the first-person, narrated audiobook style things, like How to Win Planets to Influence People, which was the speech. Yeah, exactly.
That was brilliant. Yeah, hilarious.
Yeah, all that kind of great stuff. So I knew I sort of wanted to take it in a kind of performative direction anyway. So that was sort of why there was a lot of first-person stuff. I also knew at the time one of the big things that the company was, a general criticism of the company was that there wasn't enough new voices. So the kind of big experiment I ran for the first 2 years, which was the initial run, because we record 2 years at a time, was to get new voices in, which I think was a worthwhile thing to do, but possibly we didn't quite get the kind of experimental range in terms of stories. And then someone dropped out for that slot, which became Regeneration Impossible. So it was the last one for the entire run to be even conceived. And Nick went, oh, Jake does 12 as well. And my brain just went, 11, 12, perfect. We'll get them together. But one of the things that I'd also seen about short trips is a lot of people going, audiobooks are harder for me. I prefer the audio drama stuff. And I understand that. I think, but there's definitely a way in that you could kind of transition from, like I was saying, sort of more performed short trips into the more kind of classical prose ones. But we need a sort of one that would be a drama one. And logistically speaking, I would need someone who could do all of the parts. So it was just this sort of perfect storm of Jake, an opportunity to do it, and to be able to sort of do this drama. And I went to Nick, can I write this one? And he was very supportive, because I thought I'd done one in the last run. This really should be someone else's slot as much as possible. But no, you should do it, and you should definitely do it as a drama, and this all sounds fabulous. So from there, it was, we sort of pulled that together, and that went down so well that then I was able to go to Nick and Dave and Jason and go, can we do more of these? Which is why there are 2 of them in volume 11. There was only meant to be 1. And there's another one coming up in volume 12.
Hello? I'm the Doctor. I'm here to help.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions.
Tricky business at the best of times, Regeneration, and 3 a.m. among a bunch of dead humans isn't anyone's idea of the best time. I hope. Look, I just wanted...
Doctor Who, short trips.
You're regenerating.
Oh, brilliant knee-splaining.
Have you done this before?
Have I done this before? How do you think you got here?
Regeneration impossible.
Oh, what the hell? Guess I'm stuck with you. Hello, Doctor. I'm the Doctor, and I'm dying.
Big Finish. We love stories.
You can't be the Doctor. I'm the Doctor, the last Doctor.
Oh, are you? Oh, this is awkward. I'll just sit in the corner and not exist, shall I?
I want to get to writing in a moment, but in terms of a producer, what is your job as a Big Finish producer? What does that job encompass?
Oof, I mean, so many things, but it kind of depends on the range. So sometimes as a producer, I have just come on and the box set is halfway done already. So like the early Chronicles stuff, I just came on and made it. So sometimes it is just stepping in and making sure that the product is delivered. In terms of something like Short Trips, which is weirdly one of the most demanding ranges in Big Finish, especially back when it was 12 a year, possibly. I think I'd say the Torchwood monthlies are probably the only other one that, because it's just you, and you've got to get so many stories out in a year and so many ideas and so many people that the sheer volume of it is quite intense. So you're finding writers, you're talking with the script editor, which in this case was me as well. So you've got to kind of find people and come up with ideas and go look at the range as a whole and go, okay, we've done these stories. What are we looking for? What kind of stuff do people want? What kind of new characters can we bring in? Because that's a big part of it. So in a sort of little bitty range like that, you'll sort of go, okay, we've got this reader. We can't have too much of this Doctor and this companion team. So we've got to make sure we've got that kind of a nice spread of stories, tonally, time periods, all of that. But for something like a box set, especially for an ongoing series, as a producer, you are, as anything David Richardson has produced, you will hear from the extras. You're one of the key things is coming up with series ideas in conjunction with the script editor, selecting the writers, doing all the paperwork, handling all the approvals with internally and externally with the senior management at Big Finish and the BBC. And then you're making sure that everyone gets contracted, everyone's there on the day, everyone has a nice time on the day, the thing gets made. You're picking sound designers, you're picking musicians, you're making sure everything, you've got to crisis manage if it all goes wrong, you're juggling 1,001 bits, you are responsible for the whole thing from beginning to end, and you have to be across all bits of the production and at all times kind of chipping in inputs. And so you're giving notes on edits, you're giving notes on the music and scripts and everything. You're involved at basically every stage, including possibly casting if you've got people you particularly want to pull in for that. Is
the producer the most far-ranging job, because it touches on everyone's job without doing anything? So a director has the task of getting the script. I assume the director usually makes some notes on the script before the final edit. But on the day, the director comes in, the cast's happened, the director's had some input, the producers had input, director makes sure all the words get on the page, get recorded properly, and then puts it all together. But the producer has oversight of that, plus the sound edits, plus the music edits. So the producers, and you're saying contracts, BBC. So the producer's job is actually a very big umbrella job, isn't it?
Yes, I think you're the only person beyond sort of Nick as the creative director or Dave as the senior producer or senior management. You are the only person who is on the project from beginning to end. And you have input at every stage, a responsibility for every stage. You're also the person who records all of the interviews usually at least, on the recording day. So not only are you running the recording day, but you've got to make sure you're getting all the behind the scenes content for marketing, and you're getting all the interviews for the discs and extras. So yes, you are involved at every stage, which means a lot of really delightful things, but also generally, as is the way of radio, TV, theatre, whatever, if you're the producer and there's a problem, it's on you to solve it. So yes, it comes with a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of joy.
Can I just ask a question on the Short Trips? Was that range a testing ground for potential new writers? Was that where you were looking to try out new people?
Yes, to an extent. I mean, that was really what the subscriber short trips were for. But when I came on, there was a real push for let's get new people in. So there were a lot of people that we tried who were first-time Big Finish writers. So it sort of became that sort of incubation period for a couple of years. And then, as I think you'll probably see with Volume 11, and again with Volume 12, when the details are out, so that we are starting to bring people back and use people from that run again. But yes, it did become an incubation ground, which is one of the reasons also that the drama scripts are actually quite good, because sometimes excellent prose writers struggle with drama, and vice versa. So doing a short form drama piece is a great way to test a writer in terms of, can you do a dramatic piece instead of just a prose piece, and then be able to go to other producers and go, hello, I've had this person who's done this great drama. It's easier to kind of recommend them to other people because you remove that barrier of, are we going to have that kind of transitional problem?
So after the short trips range, did you then go work on the main range with Scott Hancock?
No, I think the 12th Doctor Chronicles was first by, yeah. So we did. I then took over the Chronicles range from Scott, because that's when I met Scott, who's now a very dear friend of mine, and that was great fun because, it was kind of one of the eras that I'd really fallen in love with was the Moffat era. But when I took over the Chronicles range, they'd already had the chat with the BBC, going, these should be full cast, which is why 11th Doctor Chronicles Volume 2 is full cast, and from there, all the other ones have followed. So I'd kind of proven my mettle on the short trips range as producers. I then took on slightly longer form. And in terms of the main range, that was very much just helping people out. So occasionally I will dip into things. I've done that a couple of times for Torchwood, where Scott or Goss can't be at a particular recording. Maybe they're double booked. Maybe just they can be at the recording, but they can't do the earlier bit of the production. So I sort of step in and help out here and there.
So after doing a lot of producing, you've started writing. So you wrote a couple of short trips as your first. You said before writing was actually your passion as a kid. Was it hard to get? Did you just allocate yourself to get the short trips writing jobs, or did someone tap you on the shoulder and say, "Yep, you can do it now"?
In terms of Doctors and Dragons, I think I asked and I was given the go ahead. And Nick is very good at encouraging new people to try things, and so I did it that way. But when it came to Regeneration Impossible, I might have mentioned earlier, forgive me, I did go to Nick and go, can I've got the idea for this, and I think this will work. Can I do this? Because I'm aware that, I'm sort of, it's a slot. I've done one already. I don't want to improve it. And he was very, very supportive and like, no, absolutely, it's your idea. Go ahead and do it. So I've always tried to do elements of, if I'm producing something, I will either, especially now, I'm either leading the project in a sort of showrunnery is possibly the wrong word, but kind of like, right, this is the thing, and I'm going to do this, and I've been hired. Big Finish said, go and do this. Yes, you can write some. Absolutely, go and do this. I will do that, but I'll try in other ranges, not commission myself at all. So I won't be doing any of the I've never did any of the 12 Doctor stuff. Just to sort of keep that kind of split going. And it was one of the reasons that I decided to step down from producing short trips, was that I originally for 11 and 12 weren't going to write any of them. I kind of pushed the ideas for Rearguard and Death Will Not Pass Us Around. I wasn't happy with the results I was getting back. It's just people didn't quite get the concepts. And I sort of made the deal of, well, I want to write these. I think these are going to be great stories, and I think they should be made. But if I'm doing that, I have to quit, because Doctor Who is a show about change, and it shouldn't, new people should come in. So I'm kind of very wary of when I'm producing things that I'm not just commissioning myself all the time. And, I'm very fortunate that other people have commissioned me since, which is very validating. But it sort of has become, while initially it was, yes, go and do that, it has now become a sort of, well, if I'm doing that, that's me done. So like for instance, the Jake Dunman stuff with 11, I was like, well, it's one of my favorite Doctors growing up. It's Jake. Jake is, I said to Jake, are you okay with me writing some of these? And he went, yes, absolutely, I want you to do that. So I have taken that as a sign of going, great, people want me to do this, I will do this, but then I will step away and let new people come in and give them a chance to explore whether they are producers who write or producers who direct and get other writers in. But initially it was go and do this style thing.
So one of the commissions that you did was for River Song. You wrote the K9 episode in her Machine box set. How did that come about?
Yeah. I got a call from Matt Fitton in lockdown and said, did you want to do River Song meets K9? It can have a tiny cast. And I must confess, I was quite torn because I'm not the world's biggest fan of K9. But I do love River Song.
Who doesn't love River Song?
Well, exactly. But I'm not a particularly big fan of I'm not a particularly big fan of puns. K9 doesn't really have a kind of interesting character arc to sink your teeth into.
So you don't like puns, and you credit a character called Feline.
Yes. Oh, we'll get to the cats. Don't you worry. And so I sort of went, right, I've been given, and I took it on mainly because it was a challenge. So I went, right, okay, on the one hand, we have a tin robot with a pun name and a time-traveling archaeologist, former assassin who's sort of the wife of a demigod. That's an interesting contrast. And so I wanted to do something that explored both of them. And I went, right, well, what's a kind of, because K9's in it, I didn't want it to just be a thrilling adventure with K9. I wanted it to be about K9 because that was what I'd been given. I thought, okay, well, if there's a robotic dog, maybe instead of people adopting animals, animals could adopt people. I thought, okay, well, if that's true, if there's a robotic dog, there's going to be a cat. Now, the cat was called Feline FE hyphen. And then the pronunciation guide was FE-line. The pronunciation guide then became its name. I don't really know how that kind of just slipped through. So someone then online went, well, you don't know what a pun is. And I went, one, it was a visual kind of play on things. Two, it changed. And everyone went, well, why didn't you call it Kit N? That was Emily Cook. She's like, you should have gone with Kit N. And my defense for that, and it's a very poor defense, I will admit, is they are the same level of joke. I would not argue that one of them is particularly funnier than the other. I'd say they're all of a same standard. Whether you like that standard, I will leave in somebody else's hands. You can probably tell my view on it from my tone of voice. But it was that kind of thing. And I thought, right, okay, we've got this. How do we then, what can we do that's sort of interesting? And it was originally a lot darker. It was originally can I do spoilers on this?
Yes, that's fine. It's been out for a long time.
Yeah. So the bad guy is essentially a scientist who's experimenting on his junior to cure himself of this disease. And originally it was going to be his wife. And it was sort of you have the kind of dark parallel between the positive, happy kind of but weird supportive relationship of River and the Doctor. And then you have this darker marriage that is very destructive. And I was told that was slightly too dark to put it back. But in the midst of all this, I thought, okay, well, we've got the dog, and then we can kind of play with the core ideas of Doctor Who and expectations. And you think K9's lovely K9, but actually they're the villain. And I was told in various drafts I had to cut down the amount of River being rude about K9. River was initially adopted my views on K9. and I was told that was possibly going a bit too far to put it down. And we couldn't make it as dark. It was originally a lot sort of darker and sort of driven from that side of things. So it kind of became this sort of weird hybrid of that. But yeah, it was a challenge, and it was a weird one to get the reviews on as well, because one of my jobs as production coordinator, just a tangent massively, is to get all the reviews for the podcast Good Review to Guide. So I am responsible for going through all of Big Finish's reviews. But it was very weird, the sort of reaction to it. It was, some people loved it, which was great. Some people just hated it, which is fine, you expect. But in the middle, there was this weird sweet spot of people going, I really loved one half, but I thought it went to, I didn't like the other half. And it was completely split of people going, I really love that beginning, but it really went downhill otherwise. And the other half going, oh, well, that beginning was rubbish, and then it really picked up at the end. And so you're always kind of, especially when I'm looking through for reviews, you're sort of, when you've got to look at them, you're trying to find things to learn. And that's kind of I think kind of one of the healthier ways to look at it, is these people are offering opinions, and you can kind of, if there's enough of them, you can kind of see what there's, if there's any patterns which you can improve upon later. So it was this kind of element of, okay, maybe there's probably a bit too many flashbacks, and there's a bit too much of a hard left turn in the middle. So maybe I can use that take that forward into other stories. But it was an interesting one to do.
From Big Finish Productions, The Diary of River Song, Series 8.
Why are we doing this?
I thought you should learn about eternity.
Because I'll live forever?
Exactly.
It's you! It's been 5 years since last I saw you.
Yes. You've built your pyramid.
Absolutely.
Lock me in! I'll have your job for this.
You're welcome to it.
Do you know who I am?
You've got to stop it.
No, we don't interfere.
But does it get better? It can't get worse than this, can it?
Let's go find out. Rachel, we have to go.
I'd like to stay and help the colonists.
You, Rachel, would be more than welcome.
How long's the journey?
It will take about 500 years.
This is the last time!
Alert. Electromagnetic interference detected in zoologicals.
Computer! I need an escape route! Now!
You need to come with me.
Why?
Because we have come to adopt you.
Okay, no?
Because you're not allowed.
Oh, but that just makes it even more tempting.
There are rules, River. Danger detected.
Listen to your friend and shut up.
River!
This is a waste of time.
Let her speak.
Mayday! Mayday!
Tempting as it is to pretend we didn't hear it, protocol must be obeyed. A mission of mercy it is. City on stilts.
Given the unstable terrain, a sensible precaution.
It's fantastic, like a fairy tale palace.
120 mechanoid.
Take us to your leader.
Why, to dare rouse me from my sleep.
System reactivate.
You'll send us both over the...
Big Finish. We love stories.
Who let the dogs out?
Do not move.
Well, it's continuing your love of the 11th Doctor, isn't it? With River Song, 11th Doctor, and of course another play in the pool of the 11th Doctor, which I just listened to only a couple of weeks ago, was the Once and Future Nurse for the Lone Centurion.
Oh yes,
box set. Utterly crazy. What was the brief for that, and how on earth did you come up with something quite so bizarre as in that box set?
Oh, I mean, one, bizarre is my wheelhouse. I think by the time of this comes out, my Gallifrey will have been out, which is just totally, just out the window nuts. But in terms of the brief for Rory, I mean, I think it might have been Scott. It was either Scott or Goss went, do you want to do Rory? It's a sort of drama comedy. And I went, yes, absolutely. I 100% am there for that. Rory is one of my favourite new series companions. I think he's brilliant. And then we were told the brief, which was alternate history Earth. It's set, during that time when history's gone wrong, and we had that kind of freedom to be free from continuity. So it definitely wasn't tied to Battlefield. It wasn't that Merlin. It's its own Merlin. And the brief was just do a sort of drama comedy. You've got Arthur, who's a bit of an idiot, Guinevere, who's the real power behind the throne, Merlin, who is the villain, and Lancelot, who is in love with Rory, but Rory can't know. That was the setup I was given. Oh, and Rory has to be knighted by the end of it. So that was all the brief that I was given. And from there, any other parts that you think are weird are entirely me.
So you once again setting up the box set. Did you actually have to write your scripts at the same time as the first box set was being written? Because were they all recorded at the same kind of junction? Or had you had a chance to listen or see the Roman ones first?
No, we definitely didn't see the Roman ones or hear them. So it must have been done at around the same time, because I imagine Arthur would have been grabbed to do a run of recording. So we were very much, myself, Tim and Kate, Kate Thornton, were sort of chatting to each other over email and stuff and talking about our set. But no, we weren't told. Obviously, Goss and Scott were all over it. So if there was anything that hit a similar beat to the Roman stuff, they would have said steer away. But we were entirely on our own and just said. I was given basically setup. I think I was basically told just to set it all up. Tim's brief was quest, which was to do a sort of obviously an artillery quest style thing, and then I think Kate was basically do the confrontation. But they were very short paragraph briefs, and I think mine was as I've said, it was just a list of plot beats we need to hit rather than specific story structures or briefs. I know Arthur had been very keen, one, for it to be funny and to not be, I'm immortal for thousands of years, oh no, woe is me, which you can do with immortals and has been done elsewhere, but he wanted to keep it very in keeping with the character that punched Hitler in the face.
Yeah,
he wanted that, and also he wanted Rory's medical prowess to feature prominently as a sort of a character trait.
Not chopping of legs.
Lot of chopping. Oh yes, well, yes, which he was very against. But yes, oh, it's terrible. You remember a line that you like? Did you? Oh no, never mind. I won't do that.
No, what's the line you like?
It's a bit at the end where. It's like the Queen says, have you taken the leg? And Malthus goes, well, taking the head would be counterproductive. I really enjoyed that. Sorry.
You're too young for this probably. It was quite Pythonesque in lots of ways, and there was all sorts of moments in which, you grabbed all sorts of different Arthurian legends. And I guess the Holy Grail was there was a moments of Monty Python, the Holy Grail in there.
We were sort of, we couldn't go as weird as Python, mainly because we had to pull together a box set. So it was that kind of that sort of zone of things, but we couldn't just be pure ridiculous, like the killer rabbit or whatever. I think that would we're still in Doctor Who, even though we're slightly pushing the boundary.
How many dragons has was how many dragons has Lancelot slain? And it was just getting more and more ridiculous as it kept going on.
Yes. Yes. No, I enjoyed Rory. It was good fun. And the last thing that Arthur said was make sure that Rory talks to Amy, which is entirely where that opening came from. When he's chatting to the Pandorica, that was entirely just on Arthur's suggestion. But yes, all of the dragon stuff and all of that was. You kind of do your research and you go, okay, what's this about? What the medicine and the humours and the fact that they kept amputating people. Oh, brilliant! There's something a modern person would be very, you don't need to needlessly amputate all the time. So it just kind of came from doing the research and going, that's a bit silly. That's a bit. I mean, we did have to cut, and I can't remember why. It was. I mean, it's not a particularly a joke or anything, but he goes, hello, for some reason, Lancelot. Hello, I'm Lancelot of the Lake, and Rory went, hi, I'm Rory of the Pond, and I'm not quite sure why that never quite made it, but that was in the first draft, and I think possibly just got cut for time. But that you just sort of look for the similarities and where you can kind of tie it together.
Who goes there?
'Tis I, friend.
Sir Lancelot, covered in glory, and treasure.
Open the gate!
From Big Finish Productions, The Lone Centurion, Volume 2.
Hold the poultice on the wound. It will help combat the infection.
There are other options we could try.
Boy, while I admire the confidence in your medical knowledge, the fact that you believe it surpasses my own is beginning to grate.
Word has reached me that a dangerous artifact has been smuggled into Camelot.
What kind of object?
An arcane weapon that is supposed to contain the power of a divine trickster. But advise the guards to be cautious. The box has a guardian.
Some kind of magical defender?
You are the Centurion that guards the Pandorica.
How many times? No, I'm not.
And now you must decide. Which one will you pull to safety? And which one will be breathed upon by the evil dragon?
I thought Camelot was meant to be at peace as long as Arthur was king. And yet, it appears Camelot is now at war.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Right, well, I better get going. Camelot needs me.
I wanted to talk about Ex Machina. So a total contrast to the Rory stories. We've gone from comedy to very serious, but Yanto does have the capacity for humour, doesn't he? So he's a slightly comic persona in a very serious situation. So how did you enjoy writing for Torchwood?
Really good, but very strange. Because it's one of the lighter, I think it's fair to say, Torchwood stories out there, which can get very dark. And on Doctor Who, I'm often told to make it less dark. I always seem to constantly try to do dark Doctor Who. But in Torchwood, when I finally had the chance to do something really, really dark, I just went, I'll do this kind of, it's got darker elements, but it wasn't sort of exploring the full darkness. But it was great. It was recorded in lockdown, but it wasn't written in lockdown to the best of my memory. So it was weirdly kind of prescient. And it was a really interesting development process, because initially Goss gave me the idea for what would eventually become Coffee. And we sort of ran through a few outlines of that, and it really wasn't working. And Goss said, well, look, this isn't quite working. What do you want to do? And I said, well, there's this shop I used to go to in London, which was a bookshop. And I sort of imagined what would happen because when you break up with someone, you sort of lose bits of your life. And he went, great, let's develop that. And it was really quite liberating in a way, because people got to swear, and I appreciate that's a really odd thing to chuck in. But after you've been doing loads of versions of Doctor Who, when someone would just go, oh, when they see a monster, it's quite nice to have someone just be able to do that. But also do a kind of just get to play in a different element of the sandbox, do something a bit darker, a bit more kind of real in a way. There's the bit with the flashback where bless Jake just keeps cropping up in all of my work.
I was going to say Jake's in it too.
Jake's in it, yeah. He has that lovely argument, and it's just kind of that real sort of people breaking up kind of realness, which you don't get to do that often in Doctor Who, especially in a sort of one-off story. You don't really get to do that kind of domestic scale stuff. And a lot of the Big Finish Torchwood stuff is brilliant. Is taking that kind of huge threat and really crunching it down to a really small scale, like you eventually get it's just two people at a barbecue. So it's really fun just to do something a bit more kind of dark and freeing, but not needlessly dark. James is very good at making sure that you sort of earn your darkness and earn your swearing as well, really. And it was interesting, because then the plot changed towards the end of the writing, because originally throughout the play there was a sort of reoccurring theme of Yanto making coffee, and the original solution was Yanto retcons Abby, and but essentially has to permanently wipe her memory, so this thing can never feed off her again, which was possibly a bit too dark. But also I was told that there'd been too many druggings in Torchwood recently. I mean, what a great email to receive. So could we kind of spin it to be something else? So that's where the kind of breaking up with you aspect of it came through. But it was really interesting also just to work with, especially Goss on that, and also Scott on Mock, which was the class one I did, where I was working with someone else being the script editor for the first time, and how I really adopted their style going forward, because it was when I got the first first email from Scott, and Goss had a sort of similar tone of, "Hello, please don't worry, you're going to get a lot of notes. We have to be forensic," which is the word that was chosen, and I think is very fair when we go through these things. And it was so many things that I hadn't considered, and it was such a brilliant learning curve for me, not just as a writer but also as a script editor. I'm really grateful
was that for
them
class or for Torchwood? They were being forensic.
Well, for both. It kind of kicked off. It kind of kicked off on Mock, and then Goss has a very similar kind of style. He's not. He doesn't needlessly overnote. He notes where it's needed, but it just goes through line by line. And so that was kind of between the two of them that I really learned a lot. So it was a great one to do. It's another one. A lot of my big finishes, it's really, we've recorded a lot of stuff, especially recording over lockdown. I've not been in the same room with all these people. I've done one with Alex Kingston, couldn't be in the room for that. One with David Tennant, couldn't be in the room with that. My Derek Jacobi's just been announced. Didn't get to meet Derek. Didn't get to meet Gareth. So many great actors, and a privilege. And one of the joys of Big Finish is that you get these such colossally talented actors on your work. And then normally one of the delights is going into the green room and meeting people. I was just there at home got a text me like, "Oh, we recorded yours today. Cool, good. They enjoy it. Yeah, great, good. But yeah, Torchwood was fun. I'd love to do another one. And I've spoken to Goss about possibly doing some more, but I'm just stacked up at the moment, so it's not really been possible. But it's a great. I mean, what he's done with that range is phenomenal, and kind of constantly hits it out of the park every month. And it was really great to be a part of that, and also not drop the ball. I was really pleased that it got a kind of positive reception.
Hello? Is there anyone here? I need help!
From Big Finish Productions, Torchwood, Ex Machina.
So, how'd you find me? I don't exactly advertise.
Went to the police. Said it sounded more like your problem than theirs. No one's come near Cardiff for years.
Cardiff might be borderline dead, but that doesn't mean it should be abandoned.
You're Newport's intergalactic bouncer.
The whole world's, really. But yes.
Oh.
Pretty much. Used to be more of us in London, but we were attacked. Almost completely destroyed. Couldn't just leave the rift unmonitored, so here I am. Just me and my Vanwy.
Can she help us?
Not really, she's a pterodactyl.
Let me help you! I love you!
Where are we heading?
Back to the hub, the tourist office.
Got it.
Who are you?
Yanto Jones, ma'am. I'm with Torchwood.
Never heard of you.
See, Abby? That's the correct answer.
I love you!
Why are we stopped?
I don't know. I'm getting sick of this. Work it out later?
Work it out later.
You must be stopped.
Abby, look out!
Big Finish. We love stories.
It's interesting you mentioned script editing, because Philip brought up the fact that the new Unit box set with Brigadier Bambera has just come out, and I noticed you're doing a bit of joint script editing there with Rob Valentine. This is Rob's virtually his baby, but are you sort of script editing his scripts?
Yes. So generally, what will happen is there'll be a main script editor on a range. So, for instance, with the Chronicle stuff, I'm script editing everyone else's, and then Matt Fenton is coming in to script edit. So that's what we did with Unit. It just so happened that I'd also been invited to write one at the same time. So there is a sort of, if someone is the script editor, they can't then script edit themselves. So you get someone involved, and occasionally that will be another writer from the same set. So that's kind of how that's done. But yes, it was very much in the case of Unit. I'll script edit yours and you can script edit mine, and that's great. And yeah, I love that set.
The sense I got from that, I just finished that today actually, and the sense I got from that, apart from the stories, I loved listening to the extras. Angela Bruce seemed like such a bundle of fun. It just sounds like it would be the most fun place to work for a couple of days making these boxes.
Oh my God, she's amazing. I'm having coffee with her on Wednesday. We discovered we live near each other, so I was like, we must meet. And then she texted me going, yes, we must. No, Angela's amazing. And again, because I was brought up in this sort of higgledy-piggledy Doctor Who approach, Bambera was my first brigadier. And so it was weird then seeing Lethbridge Stewart and going, who's this bloke? Where's Bambera? Can we have more Bambera, please? And it was such a sort of staggering thing that Big Finish hadn't done Bambera for a while. But no, I mean, just absolute hoots. A real honour to help write for that team. But my story is the one where they all kind of come together and do their first full team. So that was really fun to do.
So when they did the Unit Nemesis story, which is when Bambera first, they go back in time, meet Bambera, was it known then that they were going to be doing the Bambera boxes? Was that just sort of a teaser, or did she just go so well there they went, hey, let's do some work with Angela Bruce?
I don't know. I mean, the company's worked with Angela for over the years on various other bits and pieces. That would be a question to ask Emily Cook. I was very much just brought on as a writer. I don't know. I imagine, given the release times, they were probably both in the works at the same time, but Nemesis probably recorded first.
Yep.
Because otherwise, I think one of the unit Brave New World supporting team would have featured in Nemesis. So I think that would have just slightly edged it out. But yes.
I did hear Rob say that he was kind of getting a lot of inspiration for these sets from 90s era shows like the X-Files, for instance. That was a big influence. And the James Bond films, he even mentioned that as well, with the approach that these stories were taking. Is that the kind of style that you were looking at when you were writing your story as well?
Yeah, really, especially with mine, because it's that kind of weird, is the alien an alien, or is it a supernatural thing, or what is it and who is it? It was very much, each story outline had different sources of inspiration. So Robert's was very much GoldenEye, and I can't remember what was on Alton's, but mine was basically just the X-Files. Give us an X-Files style story. And so I just started watching lots of X-Files and put together 2 or 3 different pitches. And from there, Rob and Emily we like the first 2, merged them together, and then it became Dark Side of the Moon, which I think was also their title. But yes, it was very important for us to make sure that we hit that 90s feel, because it's sort of the point of the set is to have these kind of 90s adventures. I
mean, you mentioned earlier your love of Sylvester McCoy in that era, because as when you were young, starting to watch his videos. Do you remember Bambera from Battlefield from back when you were a kid?
So clearly. Oh my God, so clearly. There was a boy at my school called Ansel, and he didn't understand why I kept calling him Anselin. There was a school talent concert, school talent show. I did another one, Bites the Dust on the Spoons. I was, fully into not just the Seventh Doctor era, but also Battlefield, which is, I think, an early one I got on VHS. So I have very clear memories of that story. And I know we did a phone call, Rob and I did a phone call. This is possibly slightly spoilery, but I've said it in Vortex, so never mind. We just went to each other, I know what happens next. And we told each other what happens after Volume 2. And it was basically bang on the same thing. And so we went to Emily and went, can we? So if it does well, nothing is guaranteed with these things. But yes, I would love, not only would I love to do more Bambera, I would love to start bringing in elements of Battlefield. Let's put it that way.
So also just out is Gallifrey War Room.
Yes! My God, it's time travel, yes.
So what was the decision made? Because I mean, Gallifrey had been Gary Russell's baby from the very beginning. When you were listening to your early Big Finish, was Gallifrey part of your listening, or was that outside of your scope then?
I must have. It was a blind spot, and it's basically it continued to be a blind spot until I was commissioned to do it. At which point I went back and did the Time War stuff.
So for the Time War, so Scott Hancock took over, and he took Gallifrey quite a different direction, which has been marvelous. What can we expect from the new Gallifrey?
Well, the new Gallifrey is in the Time War, so it's different. Romana has been banished to where she ends up in, I think, the Doctor Who experience.
Was that simply because Lala was unavailable, or was it a deliberate decision to leave her out of the box set? You don't know. That would be a question for the producer. That's the sort of thing when you're the producer you have to think about, and then you go to the writers and say, these are your characters. These are who you've got. But we're pulling in characters from across the Time War range. Rasmus is there. Veklen's there. There's the cover has been out. Richard Armitage is there as Rassilon. Yes.
And so and the General, Ken Bowes is back as the General. So we're shifting into that kind of team that we see from Day of the Doctor starting to come in as the Time War progresses. Again, it was all quite standalone, so I can't really speak to the others in the set. But mine is very, it's not very politics central, let's put it that way. It's very much, I was given the away mission story. And I think that came out because I went to Matt and went, hi, I've got like this Time War idea, and this is what this is. And if you think Rory is high concept, and Matt went, okay, cool, great, thanks. That's a good idea. We'll see where we can find it, and it ended up being ended up in the Gallifrey Time War set. So I have been kind of we did a sort of group chat, and there is sort of bits of other people's stories, but mine is very kind of standalone away mission in the Time War. I think it's fair to say it's the timey-wimey one. And I always like my Time War to be weird, so I went full weird. This is very strange because I could tell you because
we'll have heard it by the time.
We'll have heard it by now.
Yeah, this is the thing. Do you want me to spoil it for you in advance?
No. Well, don't spoil it because there'll be people who haven't listened to it yet, like we have. So we don't want to spoil it for them because it's worth starting off the new series. Once again, you did get to go to the recording of this either?
No. This is again everything just passed me by. But this is all sad. I mean,
do you think they just don't tell you it's on because they don't want you there?
No, I mean,
you're a shocker, Phil.
I hope not.
So that's me trying to be humorous, but it obviously didn't work for you.
No. I mean, but also sometimes it really depends on if we have room. Like with some of the Chronicle stuff, we are recording this. If the recording is pulled together very quickly, sometimes you can't. Or you've got lots of actors, it's not really viable to have another person in the recording. So if you've got lots of time, especially also stuff with like COVID measures, you sort of don't want someone who doesn't really need to be there. Like it's nice for the writers to be there, but they've kind of done their job. So different factors, especially the last 2 years.
I'd cry if I couldn't be there.
No, some of them are particularly heart-wrenching when you're not able to make it. But that one is. What I would say for Gallifrey is listen to the extras because it has a very personal. That story came from a very personal place, and it will help kind of try and convey what I'm doing with the weird structure. But I won't. If I say what it is in advance, it will give things away. So that's all I will say for that. But yes.
Yeah. Far in the future, we'll talk to you again about it and get a bit more out of you in terms of that. And of course, you've got Derek Jacobi coming out to a War Master. Was this a long, long time ago, or is it? I know that these being recorded well in advance.
This was a while ago. This would have been. I think this might have been this would have been a lockdown writing. This was one of the scripts I did in lockdown. So yeah, it would have been at least a couple of years. A few of those have been kind of banked ahead of time, just while we've got hold of Derek. So yeah, it was a bit of an old one, but again, great fun. And
I believe Richard Earle, Dr. Holmes. No,
yes.
Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson. With I'm assuming a cameo by Sherlock as well, but I'm not sure if it's a cameo or not. Yeah, so how? Yeah, okay, that makes okay. Good. So somehow War Master crosses with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Yes. So the whole box set is set in the land of fiction. The opening of mine is there is Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes are having dinner, and Lestrade arrives and tells Watson that he's been murdered. But of course, instead of it being Sherlock Holmes, it is the Master as Sherlock Holmes. And then yes, the Master has to solve this mystery of why is he having dinner with Watson, and apparently Watson has also been murdered.
Man, this whole set looks like an incredible set. I can't wait for this one.
It looks crazy. Again, I don't do my concepts alone. Clearly, it's just like, right, what's the wackiest version of this I can do? But that was great fun to do. And again, oh god, has the full cast been put out there? Yes,
yeah, the full cast out there.
I mean, just an amazing cast on the whole thing. Oh, Sappy's in one, yay! But Bern Gorman is Lestrade.
Yes, it's going to be great,
amazing.
Actually, I also know that Richarda Patel is writing one of these. Who's writing one of your new box sets for the Jacob Dudman series?
Yes, she does. She's done an absolute blinder for the closer of Geronimo.
Watch this space.
Watch this space, but just a beautiful 11th Doctor episode, really of the era, and I'm sure that will cross over into this great War Master set as well.
There was one thing I wanted to ask about UNIT, but you may not know the answer to this question.
Okay.
The music of Borna Matosic.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that, or is that a Emily question?
Emily worked with Borna over the Doctor Who lockdown things. I think they did. Was it the cover of the Long Song that they did? And they got everyone to be the choir. I believe that was.
Oh, that was Emily, was it? That put that together.
That was Emily. I think that was all part of the Doctor Who lockdown. I might be wrong, but I believe
I did see the clip, and I've seen him do covers of the theme and on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Very good stuff.
Yeah, when Emily took over, she went, I'm having him on the music. And I think it was just as simple as that. And, all of the, as you can see, the clips and the covers of the theme were very easy to convince the powers that be. They go, yeah that's who we want.
And I always love electric guitar in the themes. Don't I, Philip?
Oh, you do. You love electric guitar.
But that UNIT theme is so good. Just the music in that is incredible. And I really like the way at the end of mine, how the music builds and builds and builds. Instead of it crashing into the theme just arrives and it's part of the music. And it's really brilliantly done. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, listen, Alfie, there's some exciting stuff still to come. I know there's even more stuff that you can't even talk about. And that's good. And hopefully you may come back and talk to us a bit more down the track. Can I say, in the few years you've been a Big Finish, what you have done just makes me feel sick, and I slightly hate you. But
oh, you're the one who's been writing those reviews. Ah, right, good.
No.
Put a face to it.
No. I love your material. Hate you personally, but I do love what you're doing.
In that case, you've been very tolerant for the last 2 hours or so for putting up with a man you hate. That's been a staggering show of force.
Listen, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute joy and pleasure talking to you, and looking forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Thanks for having me, and I'd love to come back and talk about all the things that I've sort of got NDAs about. That would be really great. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Welcome to your physics mock. You have 1 hour to complete the paper. You may begin.
From Big Finish Productions, Class, Volume 4.
Don't know why you're so stressed out. It doesn't matter, does it? It's just a mock.
What? I thought they were important?
They're not even the best way of testing us. It's not like we have to analyse anything either. Just recite the textbook like it's a Bible.
Oh my... Oh, God.
What's the matter, my liege?
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Not a great start, Charlie.
And what is that?
An irritation, because it's very small and very weak, but it just won't go away.
It is a signal from across time and space?
Back of Old Street, actually, which is worrying, as it means something irritating is already here.
Please, Charlie! I can't hold this! I'm losing you! Go, Charlie! Go! Save yourself!
Charlie! Come on!
Big Finish. We love stories.
Damn it. I hate a cliffhanger.
Well, that was a fabulous chat we had there with Alfie. Thanks so much for organising that, Philip.
My pleasure. And, I can't say, guys, it is so sorry the stuff you're not going to get to hear, because we've just spent 3 hours having the most amazing, 3 hours and 15 minutes. And yeah, you don't want to get, actually you would love to get all of it, but you're not going to get it. But we've had a great time. Alfie, thank you so much for your time. It has been a joy.
Yes, and lots of exciting things to come from the pen of Alfie Shaw. So that only leaves us to talk about our recommendations for this particular episode. And this time I would like to go first, but that can never happen. Do you know why, Philip?
Of course it can. You can go first.
No, it's your turn.
Okay. I'm going to recommend something that, once again, it's been out for a little while, but I only just listened to it fairly recently. Well, actually finished it today. The War Master, Self-Defense. Derek Jacobi, just astounding actor, and everything he does is just amazing. Wonderful writers Lou Morgan, Una McCormack, Elizabeth Miles, and Lizzie Hopley have done all the writing. They're all women. I hadn't realised that to that moment. It's an all-female cast of writers, and they've all done an amazing job. Can I say particularly the final story with David Tennant? David Tennant and Derek Jacobi together in The Last Line by Lizzie Hopley. It is astounding. Those two together are just so talented. There's a conceit in terms of how you manage to bring the two together, but it is so believable and worthwhile. And I was expecting a twist and waiting for it, and there was so much bigger than I expected. Have you listened to this set?
I haven't. It's queued up. One or two sets to go until I get to it.
So it's the whole full story. It's a slow burn. It's the master on trial. So it's 4 stories with him on trial. So Derek Jacobi gets to tell a lot of stories. He loves storytelling. And so it's flashing backwards to the trial, and he's defending himself. And it's a bit of a slow burn. There's some interesting stories along the way, all very engaging. But that last story is just mind-blowing. What Lizzie Hopley does is, really, really worth listening. If you haven't heard it, people, buy it, because it's sensational. What are you, Dwayne? Now I've gone first. Coming second, what do you want to listen to?
Well, I couldn't think of anything to recommend this week, so yeah, I actually got the randomoid selector trying to pick one for me. How's that?
That's cheating.
Had a few goes till I got one I liked. I went, okay, here we go. So I'm going to recommend a story by Justin Richards. It's a 4th Doctor story from season 5 of the 4th Doctor Adventures on Big Finish, Wave of Destruction. I don't know if you remember this opening story.
I do remember it really well.
But it was really good, and I enjoy this whole season because the whole season is kind of based on season 17. It's got that season 17 style, and you know how much I've come to love that season over the years. So, Wave of Destruction. Will I spoil it? Yes, I'll spoil it. It's a Varden story. So that's, if you think about the title, you'll work out why the Vardens are in it. But I really enjoy this one, and because it's the first in the season, I'll just go ahead and recommend the whole season. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it really makes the Vardens sound good.
Yes, absolutely.
But the Vardens are much better here than they were in Invasion of Time. Yep. Much better.
All right, that is our episode for today. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, if you're watching us on YouTube, drop a comment, like, subscribe, and share. Spread the word. Let everyone know that we are on YouTube as well. You can watch us on Spotify too and leave us a rating there, or leave us a rating on your favourite podcast app or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio episode 126, A Voice from the Wilderness Years, with our guest Alfie Shaw and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Original theme music composed by Joe Kramer. Our website is sirensofaudio.com. You can email us at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or contact us via any one of our socials. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear ya next time.